In this session, we are going to discuss the poetic devices or techniques used by John Keats in the poem To the Nile. Right. Write down first technique, the Petrarchan. The Petrarchan sonnet tradition. The Petrarchan sonnet tradition. Write down. John Keats imitates the style of Petrarchan sonnet, the model of Petrarchan sonnet, to express his feelings and thoughts, over the Nile. Second technique, the first person point of view. Write down. The poet is himself engaged with the African in their beliefs about the Nile. Therefore, as a part of this argument, over the Nile, the first person point of view is used Please quote this line. we call the fruitful. And that very, it continuous. If you dots and put close with inverted commas. That's an example for using the first person point of view. Second technique, personification. Personification. Go on writing. The Nile is personified. The Nile is personified as a sun. As a sun. And the all moon mountains with inverted commas, the all moon mountains are personified as the Nile's parents. As the Nile's parents. As the Nile's parents. For technique, apostrophe. Apostrophe. Write down. Apostrophe is some words of address. Some words of address to a personified object. To a personified object. Full stop. The Nile is addressed The Nile is addressed by the poet The Nile is addressed by the poet as son and chief. As son and chief. Please quote these lines. Son of the all moon mountains, Africans, chief of the pyramid and crocodile. Next technique, paradox. Go on writing. Go on writing. The true nature, TRU, the true nature of the Nile is explained. Explained, EXPLAINED, in a paradox. The poet comments that the poet comments that the Nile is believed to be a fruitful river, but it flows through, a sandy desert, sandy, S-A-N-D-Y. Please quote these lines. We call thee fruitful, and that very while a desert fills our seeing's inward span. Metaphor. Next technique, metaphor. Nurse of salt nations. Write down before it. The Nile is believed to be the protector and caretaker of Africans. The protector and caretaker of the Africans. Dark fences. Or writing. Superstitious belief. Superstitious belief. Myths. and other legends, legends, other legends are referred to are referred to are referred to a barren waste, write down, a society and people, a society and people without education and knowledge, a society and people without education and knowledge are implied, are implied. 7 technique, simile. 7th one, simile. The poet mentions the Nile and the other rivers. The Nile and the other rivers have or share the same characteristics. Same characteristics. Please quote. What as I type, keep few dots. Thou dost bid you green rushes like our rivers. 8th technique, tone. Write down. The poet maintains a critical, analytical, A-N-A-L-Y-T-I-C-A, analytical and rational point of view. R-A-T-I-O-N-A, rational point of view and tone. Rational tone. Right? Next one. 9th one. Poetic diction. Language. Diction. It uses Old English. It uses Old English to give the poem a classic, elegant taste. T-A-S-T, classic, C-L-A-S-S-I-C. Classic, elegant, E-L-E-G-A-N-T, elegant taste. Elegant taste. Next technique. Sound devices. Sound devices. Write down. Rhyming. R-H-Y-M-I-N-G. Rhyming. Rhyming. As the sonnet belongs to the Petrarchan rhyming, to the Petrarchan sonnet or Petrarchan tradition, as the sonnet belongs to the Petrarchan sonnet tradition, the rhyming is in the pattern of, write down that pattern. I gave you a pattern. What is the pattern? A, B, B, A, A, B, B, A, C, D, C, D, C, D, C, D. That is the pattern. Right? That is rhyming. Next device, sound device, second one. Alliteration. Alliteration. alteration. Quote these lines. Son of all moon mountains African. Quote it. Underline M. Moon mountains. You better underline it. Well, underline karana. Don't highlight. Moon mountains. One example for alteration. Right? An example for alteration. Nurse of short nations. Another example. Underline N. Sound N. Nurse. Nations. N. Alteration. There are many other examples for alteration. Next sound device, assonance. Assonance. Vowel rhyming. Similar vowel sounds in the same line. From a line එකේ තියෙන සමාන vowel sounds. Son of the all moon mountains. Check whether there are similar vowel sounds. O. Old O. An example for alteration. Of O. Nurse of short nations. Short A. Quote this. Eva quote karana. Under assonance. We look for another example. Another example for alteration, worn with toil. ගන්න පුළුවන් වුණා නම් worn. This is for alteration and not for assonance. Don't confuse. Right. Now examples for assonance. We call the. We call the. Here E. Here E. We the. We call the. Right. Okay. There are some major literary devices used in this poem. Let's recap them. The Petrarchan sonnet tradition. Please read the previous note to understand this tradition. I gave you it in my opening note discussion. Please read it. The first person point of view, personification, apostrophe, paradox, metaphor, then simile, tone, poetic diction, sound devices. Right. I think that's quite enough for your general knowledge. In our next class, next session, we'll discuss some context questions, probable context questions, which may come out of this poem for the examination. Probable context questions. Right. Please join the class in the next session.